Welcome in to the Merriman Market Analyst and Fun Astrology Weekend Financial Podcast, taking a look at the free weekly newsletter that is published at MMAcycles.com. This for the week beginning May 13th. I'm recording this on Sunday, May 12th, one day late. Had to lay a little bit low yesterday with all the solar activity going on. But we have a great newsletter with some personal information from Ray and some really good astrology encased as well, and some good market forecasting. So this is for the week beginning Monday, May 13th. First of all, the review of last week, starting off with an article from Friday's CNBC. Dow Jones Industrial Average rose on Friday, wrapping up an 8th consecutive winning session and registering its best week of 2024. Investor enthusiasm was kept in check after consumer sentiment data released Friday morning showed a big uptick in inflation expectations. The preliminary May reading for the University of Michigan's Consumer Sentiment Index came in at 67.4, far below a Dow Jones estimate of 76 and marking its lowest reading in about 6 months. The data could indicate that inflation is not moving in the right direction either, said Brian Nick, senior investment strategist at the Macro Institute. You get hit from both sides, he said. People think things are worse than the economy and they're going to stay worse, and they're worried about inflation. And that's not a happy formula for stocks or bonds. Now, Ray's summary of the week, he says it was another positive week for most global stock indices, reaffirming our labeling that the lows of April 17th to 19th were primary cycle troughs. However, only a few indices made new all-time highs, and more will have to follow soon, or the dominance of the four-year cycle could send equity markets spiraling downward, as we are now well into the time band when that is due. In Asia and the Pacific Rim, China and Hong Kong indices were the leaders, with strong rallies to multi-month highs. Japan's Nikkei and the Australian ASX had modest rallies but remained well short of their recent all-time highs. In India, the Nifty actually fell after posting an all-time high the previous week. Europe was very strong for indices as the Netherlands AEX, German DAX, and London FTSE all posted new all-time highs on Friday. The Zurich SMI also rallied smartly but closed the week a little shy of its all-time high. In the U.S., all three major indices enjoyed rallies last week, but each also fell short of taking out their all-time highs recorded on March 21st in the Dow Jones Industrial Average and NASDAQ, and April 1st in the S&P 500. With Uranus being highlighted for the next 2 weeks, and with these indices near their all-time highs, it would not be a surprise to see them notch new records shortly. Uranus, the disruptor, has a knack for breaking through long-standing boundaries like support and resistance. Gold and silver also rallied smartly last week. In the case of gold, prices rose from a low of $22.85 1 week ago on May 3rd to $23.85 on Friday. The recent all-time high was $24.48.80 on April 12th, the same day that silver made its yearly high of $29.91. On Friday, May 10th, silver got back to $29. Both metals are within striking distance of their recent highs as Uranus comes into the cosmic mix again. Crude oil and Bitcoin are still struggling to get some traction off their recent lows and may be more vulnerable to new lows this year if they cannot find a bottom or a secondary bottom this week. And now the short-term geocosmics with no article starting this week. Ray jumps right in saying that this is a big period for geocosmic activity related to reversals or breakouts in the financial markets. Both the Sun and Venus will conjoin Jupiter and Uranus between May 13th to 23rd. This is important to students of financial astrology because it represents the first quote-unquote translation of the important 14-year Jupiter-Uranus conjunction that took place back on April 20th and 21st, depending on where you were in the world. A synodic cycle that we highlighted in our Forecast 2024 book and audiobook and webinar are likely coinciding with new all-time highs this year for stocks, gold, and Bitcoin. Those highs occurred in March and April, followed by a corrective decline into the conjunction. A quote-unquote translation occurs when a faster-moving planet aspects two slower-moving planets still in the orb of their aspect. Sometimes the translation event is more spectacular in financial markets than the longer-term planetary aspect date itself. So will this translation result in another retest of those lows, secondary lows, or a breakout to new all-time highs, or something totally different and surprising? We must also remember that hard aspects involving Uranus are often present during natural or human-induced calamities, such as tornadoes, tsunamis, earthquakes, electrical blackouts, terrorism, etc. They can also be present when impressive discoveries, inventions, and/or technological innovations are launched, even in the case of space travel. At its best, it's inspirational to see what humankind is capable of creating when it is positive and potentially uplifts the collective spirit. This might coincide with a new effort toward world peace that garners sudden support. Ray says, I will say this. I was in Miami for last month and went clubbing with my wife, Antonia. She likes to dance. We went to the Boho Club about a week ago. It was amazing and inspirational. There I witnessed people of all colors and nationalities dancing and laughing and enjoying partying with one another. There was no separation of blacks and whites, Hispanics and Jews, Arabs, Latinos, Cubans, baby boomers, millennials, Gen X's, Y's, and Z's, and whatever other alphabet society assigns to people today. Everybody, and there were hundreds, danced with each other as if in a movable and rhythmic group hug. I was inspired. When I witness this kind of spirit, I have hope for humanity. I believe this is what most people really want in life, just to enjoy one another without all the labels and identity politics of politicians and news stories with biased opinions that divide us into camps that fight with each other. Everyone should go to Miami and experience cultures blending together, dancing and laughing, as it was meant to be. Maybe the after effects of Jupiter-Uranus are working in ways that we, as astrologers, hoped would be possible. The themes I experienced in Miami are certainly consistent with the best qualities of both planets. Now the longer-term geocosmics and thoughts on the history of Jupiter and Uranus. The 14-year Jupiter-Uranus conjunction has now passed as of April 20th and 21st, with various stock indices having made new all-time highs within 1 month of the event. It happened in March for the Dow Jones Industrial Average and NASDAQ, and in April for the S&P. Is that it? Will the U.S. and other global stock indices now start a new bear market? Not necessarily. According to our research studies that are published in the Ultimate Book on Stock Market Timing Volume 2, Geocosmic Correlations to Investment Cycles, which is available at MMAcycles.com. This study involved the past 11 cases regarding the Jupiter-Uranus conjunction going back to 1872 through 2010, and concluded this, quoting from the book, "Despite the seemingly low CS values, this was still a very significant aspect. In 6 cases, or 55%, the Dow Jones Industrial Average soared to new all-time highs close to the time this conjunction was unfolding. In 10 cases, 91%, the market made a significant crest, always in the same month or within 7 months after the aspect, and usually within 4 months or less. This implies that if the market is rising into the conjunction of Jupiter and Uranus, it will not top out before the aspect unfolds, and usually a little bit afterwards. On the other hand, if the market was declining into this aspect, it would complete its bottom within 1 month and then make a very powerful reversal back upwards. If a long-term cycle has bottomed within a year before, be long going into and maybe slightly beyond, especially if the market is breaking to new record highs. And note that this summation was actually written in this volume's first edition, which was published in 1999. The U.S. stock market did complete a 50-week cycle trough in late October 2023. That was within a year of the April 2024 Jupiter-Uranus aspect. According to this history, another new all-time high will likely form within the next 7 months, and probably within 4 months following the aspect, thus by August 2024. This is just about a perfect correlation to classical astrology principles regarding aspects. It is that Jupiter is the planet of good fortune and is in a favorable aspect to Uranus, Neptune, and Pluto from April 20th through June 2nd. But in mid-August, it switches to a square aspect with Saturn, the planet associated with fear and loss when in a hard aspect. We'll need to watch closely for changes in investor sentiment around that time and prepare an investment plan accordingly. We'll discuss that strategy more fully in next week's MMA Mid-Year Financial Markets Investment webinar on May 18th. Might be a good idea to attend this event if you have substantial long-term stock positions. It's not just the astrological signatures indicating a challenging period ahead, but the 4-year and 50-week cycles are converging then as well. So enjoy this upswing while it lasts, but have a plan in place as Jupiter morphs from sextiles and trines into a square with Saturn by mid-August, and Mars becomes a translation trigger at the same time. And if you go to MMAcycles.com, at the top is the link to the free weekly newsletter, and just go down to the announcements and the link is there to register. Have a great rest of the weekend. I'll see you on Fun Astrology on Monday for a full week ahead. Have a great one. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye.